You're listening to the End Zone Scoop, where three girls, two Brits and one American, discuss the beautiful game of American football. So join me, Liz Bandari, NFL Girl UK, and my co-host Dayna O'Gorman from Our Turf Football and Shona Duthie from 99 Yards. Enjoy the show!
Everyone, and welcome back to End Zone Scoop. I'm Shona Duthie from 99 Yards, and I am here with my co-host Dayna O'Gorman from Our Turf Football. Liz is a bit poorly this week, so we are without her. So how are you doing, Dayna?
Well, I feel fine. I'm sad that Liz isn't going to join us, but she's ill and sounds a little bit like a duck. God love her. So it's probably best that she rests right now. How are you?
Good. Yeah. Also feeling fine. Not had to have any self-isolation periods yet. Actually, I had one, but that was in the middle of lockdown, so that's okay.
Doesn't count.
It was only for 2 days while I wait for my test result. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, it's okay.
So we're all holding in there.
Yeah, we wish Liz a speedy recovery, and hopefully she's back with us in, 2 weeks when we do our next one?
2 weeks, yeah, 2
yes.
weeks. So,
on today's show, we have got a plethora of topics to discuss, and me and Dayna like to talk a lot, so strap in. So we'll be discussing the teams who remain undefeated, underrated players, how tight the season schedule is with players testing positive, Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Ravens and their crazy trade deals. So first up, Dayna, let's talk about the teams who remain undefeated. Obviously, Green Bay slipped last week when they got beat by the Bucs. So the three remaining we have are the Titans, the Seahawks, and the Steelers. Out of the three of them, who do you feel is best placed to continue that unbeaten stretch?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, probably Seattle at this point, because the Titans and the Steelers play each other this week. So, there's a good chance that there won't be a tie. I mean, I guess there's always that possibility, especially now in the NFL. But so I think that will be of those two, it's a little harder. So Seattle's a little different right now. They are going into a stretch of probably their more difficult games. They have a bunch of divisional games, and we know the NFC West has looked so good. And so they will play the Cardinals twice in the next 5 weeks. They play San Francisco, they play the Rams, and they play the Bills. So this is going to be a difficult stretch for Seattle down the road. Whereas the other two teams, the Titans and the Steelers, I mean, they're going to face each other this week. So whether or not, it's the Titans or the Steelers that win that game, I will tell you that I feel like the Steelers have kind of the upper edge on that one. And I don't know exactly why that is, but in my head and what I've seen from them, they look like a really strong team. Not that the Titans don't. I don't want Titans fans coming all at me, because I love Derrick Henry just as much as you guys love Derrick Henry. And I'm so happy for Ryan Tannehill that he's finally he shook Adam Gase and now has like a real team to play for. But I don't know why. When I look at that, I think of the Steelers being a strong kind of black and blue kind of a team. You see the Titans as more of a finesse team, and I just think the Steelers kind of pull that one out of those two teams.
Yeah, I agree with that. I chatted about this with the guys from 99 Yards, and I just feel like the Steelers' defense is like super good right now. I feel like it's really impressive. I'm not completely convinced by Ben quite yet on the offense, but I feel like their defense is doing enough for them to see it out. Yeah, so obviously Seattle might be the team that remains unbeaten, which would be quite something. That would mean it was another franchise record, wouldn't it? It was 6-0.
It would be 6-0, and that would be for the first time for the franchise. Again, it was the first time when they went 5-0. So yeah, they can continue that. And Seattle has a very good record in Arizona. They have a tendency to play those games very strong and win down there. Now, when Arizona comes up to Seattle, it's a little bit different of a story, but they have such a good record down in Arizona. I think most people are leaning that direction for this game. And so then it'll come down to, I'm assuming, will be the Steelers and the Seahawks left at undefeated, but maybe the Titans. I really don't want Titans fans mad at me. Sorry, guys. I just feel like the Steelers are going to win that one. So, but it's been interesting to see, we've had a lot of teams that started out well, and there was always a criticism that, they haven't really played anyone super strong, that sort of thing. And so that's why they're still undefeated. And that's no longer true. Once you get into the meat of the season, which we are now at this point, teams that are still undefeated, there's a reason for them. It's not luck. It's not scheduling. It's not any of that. So I think that that's really pretty impressive for any team to get to 6-0, even to 5-0 is pretty impressive because it's pretty rare. So, and that Green Bay game, I really thought Green Bay would stay in the thick of it and be undefeated for a while. They looked so fantastic. And I have no idea what happened. They completely fell apart against the Bucs. But what they will say is I think that game had a lot more to do with the Tampa Bay defense, which is fantastic. I would argue one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league, versus Tom Brady, and the offensive side of that ball. That the defense of Tampa Bay just completely shut down Aaron Rodgers. He couldn't breathe. And so it was a nice little blueprint for other teams to be able to hopefully pull off the same thing if they play Green Bay later in the season.
What I was surprised about with that game was how much Aaron Rodgers fell apart. Like it just wasn't him at all. He's not really like that much when you look at games and you see him. He's normally quite level-headed. But I feel like you kind of saw it last year in the championship game as well in the 49ers. So I feel like he has that in them. He just something completely throws him and he can't focus and get back into the game.
Right. And it's rare because you're absolutely right. He's not like that. We all know you knock Brady on his butt a couple of times, he starts to lose it. And everyone knows they put that into their game plan. He's one of those quarterbacks that you can rattle. Aaron Rodgers is not that guy, or at least he didn't used to be. And so I was too. He had a hard time getting his head back in this game. And so it'll be interesting to see if that continues throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, so moving on to your favorite topic, the underrated players of the season so far. So who is your pick?
So the reason why I wanted to talk about this was for one person and one person only. I'm real mad at the Miami Dolphins right now. I am so upset that they benched Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback, for Tua. And it's technically below, I can't say his last name, and I apologize, and I promise I will learn it, sir. I am so sorry. But here's the thing. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a journeyman quarterback, and we've all known that, right? He has played for multiple teams. He's kind of been all over the place. And all you ever hear about him is he is A, a fantastic player, and B, a fantastic human. And so when he went down to Miami, you could understand why Miami wanted Tua to sit behind him for a while. He's a little bit of a game manager, and we get that, but how brilliant of a way to introduce your rookie, who you bet the farm on in the draft. This is your guy, right? And then to turn around, he plays 4 snaps in garbage time because Fitzpatrick had murdered the San Francisco 49ers at that point. And now all of a sudden he's the guy. I love Brian Flores as a head coach. I think that he is such a smart, level-headed, Belichick-type coach. This is baffling to me. So I want to talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick and how underrated he was, and the word undervalued comes up. So we all read the quotes that came out that he was heartbroken, that it broke his heart when he got the news that Tua was taking over. And I'm going to read this quote to you. He says, "I was shocked by it. It definitely caught me off guard. It was a hard thing for me to hear yesterday and just kind of digesting the news. My heart just hurt all day. It was heartbreaking for me." Flo kind of said, Brian Flores, Flo kind of said what he said, and what he said to you, he said 3 times in a row, guys, as well, is that it's a decision for the direction of the organization is going in. I don't understand that, because the direction your organization was going in was the playoffs. They finally have an opening in this division. Tom Brady is gone. The Patriots are struggling a bit, not terribly, but a bit. And Buffalo, who we thought would run away with the division, has had a couple blips. And so it's baffling to me that you're in the playoff hunt. Your team is killing the previous NFC championship team, and you bench him. He was playing well. He was, I think, the 7th ranked quarterback in the league in QBR. So why? So I'm real mad at the Dolphins. I told Lisa from our Turf Football, she writes for the Dolphins. I said, Lisa, I'm real mad at your team. And she's not. She's very excited. So we disagree on that. But I just think that the value Ryan Fitzpatrick brings, and the value Tua would get sitting behind him for a full season, would bring to that kid's game. It's so important, and it's completely underrated. So that's my soapbox, sister. I get real mad about it.
No, I'm with you. I was so sad to read that comment yesterday. And I actually think Ryan Fitzpatrick has had a great season so far. Yeah. So I'm a bit baffled by the decision. I get Tua had a good game, but he's still young. He's
4 snaps. He didn't have a good game. He had 4 snaps in garbage time. That's it. Oh,
he is still young. I think he's still got a lot to learn. And who better to learn than from Ryan Fitzpatrick? You're seeing it with Joe Burrow. He's been thrown in there. He's got no backup for him. And yeah, he's still playing really good football, but they're losing a lot of games because they don't have that correct protection for him yet. And there's nobody to fall back on if things don't really work out with Burrows under center, really. So he is their guy. Whereas the Miami Dolphins could have been like, okay, we know we have our future star here. Let's build up. Let's build his confidence up by learning from a guy who has been in the business for a long time and work through that with them. And it was so sweet because Ryan Fitzpatrick was so excited for Tua to start as well. He saw him on the sidelines cheering him on. He's just such a lovely guy. It's literally telling Jack Sparrow the rum has gone. And that's it. You're not playing anymore. It's really sad. And I agree with you. I think he is really underrated, and I'm really upset that he's not going to be the understar anymore.
Right. And Patrick Mahomes, he sat behind Alex Smith, and he says that was some of the most important teaching that he had ever got for his career. And I know, and there's a lot of people, Lisa, our writer, is one of them. You take a player in the first round, they start. That's her belief. If you take a player in the first round, I don't always know that that's true for quarterbacks. I do in position players, but not in quarterbacks, because I just think if you've got someone who's A, playing well for your team, like Fitzpatrick was, and B, has so much to share, then why not? And then here's the thing. Are they going to Eli Manning this guy? So let's say Tua goes out there, he starts to play, and then he gets hurt. Oh, you remember how we sat you, Ryan Fitzpatrick? We're real sorry. Will you come save our season? It's BS. I don't like it. It just doesn't sit well with me. And everyone's like, it's the business of football. This is different than the business of football. It's different. Yeah, sorry, I'll stop now.
No, I really agree with you. It was his comment. I am a Tua fan. I think he's great, but I think he needs a little bit more time. He's, as you saw, he was on course straight away to be the number 1 pick last year, and then got that injury. You have to be careful with young guys, and I get that he's gone in the first round, but I don't know. I think they could have played Ryan a lot longer, and it's sad. It's sad all around.
All right, what about you? Who do you think is underrated right now?
Okay, well, I'm going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is the first overall pick for the Chiefs in the 2020 NFL draft. He, I feel, is on course to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. He is incredible. And also, I'm not quite sure what the Chiefs are thinking, because they're thinking of taking in Bell, but they have this guy as their running back. He has obviously played through 5 games. He has 81 carries for 344 yards and 1 touchdown. That is good for a 4.2 yards carry on average. He's also got 17 receptions for 169 yards. So that's a sum total of 513 yards from scrimmage. I know he's a young guy, and when we're talking about how normally in the first round picks, you don't play the rookies that quickly, but I think in these start positions you do, like compared to quarterback. So I'm a little bit confused as to why they want to bring in Bell. Do they want to basically try and run with it to get to the playoffs? But then if you do, then you want to use the guy that people don't know about. You want to use this kid that is surprising people, who can be explosive in that sort of dimension with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going with him purely because I feel like he's a little bit under the radar at the minute, but I think people might start noticing who he is after that game against the Bills.
I agree. This was, I was so shocked when the Chiefs came out of the gate running the ball. They didn't run the ball last year. Like, you have Patrick Mahomes, you throw the ball, you do the fun trick plays, you look one direction, throw the other. You have this sparkly quarterback who gets all this attention. And so I get it. But then they came out this season running the ball down people's throat. And who were they running this ball with? Clyde. And so it was this rookie came out and just is murdering it. He's a complete dual threat. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. He's great. And I will tell you that people here, I live in Kansas City, the people here in this town adore him. But they were also so freaking excited when they got Le'Veon Bell. And I was like, what? Le'Veon Bell hasn't really played to the way he used to be when he played for the Steelers in a long, long time. Now, granted, Jets. I mean, that's all you need to say. We get it. We totally get it, right? But at the same time, he was injured. He sat out a full season. He sat out because he was wanting a new contract, wanting to be traded, whatever it was. So I don't really understand the excitement of bringing Le'Veon Bell in when you already have Clyde and I think it's Damian Williams. There's Darrell Williams, Damian Williams. They're both on the same team. I get them mixed up. I apologize. But you have this running threat that's already working. Now, if Le'Veon Bell was brought in for insurance purposes, as injury insurance, that's fine. But that's not the way this was played out in the press. And, they've said flat out, you're not going to be, our 3-down back to Le'Veon Bell. Well, yeah, because I don't think he could do it, first of all. And second of all, I think that it's, that's what they're saying. But what happens the first time Clyde fumbles that ball? They're going to put Bell in. You're going to take all that steam out of that poor rookie. And so I'm not quite sure. I will tell you, Andy Reid's comments after they got Le'Veon Bell were interesting. I wouldn't say he was like joyous. He basically said he didn't make those decisions, someone else did, and that was the end of the conversation. I mean, I understand that they're excited to have, a talent, and Le'Veon Bell is a talent, but I think that they're not really grasping, or maybe the fans and media aren't grasping what they have in Clyde, because that kid is a star. He's fantastic.
It's like what we mentioned with Dwayne Haskins. It's like, he's now being pulled, and Kyle Allen is in his place. I could talk a lot about Washington.
Yeah, we could.
And,
Understood.
Haskins is not even the second. It's Alex Smith, which is great because Alex Smith's back in football, which is nice to see. But it just breaks my heart for the kid, because that's it. His confidence is now gone. If you, hook this guy, if something does happen, like you say, it could completely dent his stride. That's not something I want to see, because it's great to see the Chiefs actually running the ball, like you said.
And it's working for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially Bell, because I know he was at the Jets and it clearly didn't work.
It's an asterisk.
Gase, doesn't really do well with anyone, so that's not a surprise. But he just hasn't lived up to that hype that we had from, and also let's not forget, when he moved from the Steelers to the Jets, he didn't play for a whole season. He sat out. So he really hasn't played ball in a long time.
Mm-mm. Not real ball. Not to the level that the Chiefs are at. And so I think that will be interesting. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, but I sure hope that Clyde gets his due, because he has been a fantastic player.
Absolutely. So now we're going to talk about this season's schedule, because it is getting smaller by the minute, with bye weeks swapping and changing, and it's really hurting my head to keep continuing with who is off where and what games are when. Do you think the NFL should have planned ahead for this? Because it was going to happen. Players were going to test positive. Should they have added another week in between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs to give that extra week in case they do have to extend the regular season due to players testing positive for COVID-19?
I think here, this is going to sound snarky, and I'm not trying to be snarky. I know that'll be a shock to some people because I can be snarky. But the thing of it is this. How many months did you have to plan this? You thought you had something under control, even though we saw with baseball and soccer and, MLS and all these other things, they don't. So let me explain that. So what's happening in MLS right now is the Colorado Rapids, the Denver team, they had to postpone like 4 or 5 games. And so that shoves everyone else's schedule into chaos because you have to cram those games in. So they have to play 3 and 4 games a week to try and make this up. So looking at that, obviously in the NFL, they only play just the 1 game a week. But now you have the shifting. We had Tuesday night football so the Bills had to play on Tuesday, but now the Chiefs don't have a Thursday night game, which technically means they lost their mini bye, and so there's all this shuffling around. I think the logic is this. The NFL came out and said, we have 3 dates for a Super Bowl. It can be, the original date, and then they have 2 more dates pushed out from there. They came in, they canceled the Pro Bowl. So now there won't be that extra week in between if they need it for games. And so I think they really thought that if we have a lot of COVID cases, it's going to be at the beginning and the end will be normal. But now what they're realizing is that is not going to be the case. Although I have been a little fascinated. Like the first couple times a player tested positive, they shut it down. Game was postponed, everything. Now they're like, meh, he only was in contact with 5 other players. He's good. Just let him play. Like they don't care anymore. And I think that's due to lack of planning. When they could have spread out this season to March if they had to.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one thing that I didn't like from this message was the NFL kind of did bend over backwards a little bit for the Titans when they constantly tested positive for players. And then they obviously found out that they practiced when they shouldn't have. And now the Titans are coming out with this rhetoric that they're the victims. I'm a bit like, well, you kind of guys should know your star players, you're well known, you're going to be seen practicing together at high school. Kind of just take a little bit of responsibility and move on from it, because the other teams haven't been like, oh yeah, we're victims, why the press have been vilifying us. They've just been like, yeah, I've tested positive, I'm trying to self-isolate and move on from the situation. I feel like that has created a bad taste as well, like for the fact that the NFL are now kind of like, yeah, it's fine, Stephen Gilmore played against the Chiefs, it's okay, he only came in contract with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, right. It's so true, there has been rumors, that the Titans will be fined. Of course, they didn't have to forfeit any games or any of those things that some people were calling for. And I will tell you, I wasn't keen on that because that throws your whole division into chaos, and it is not really fair. But fair is relative. I understand that everyone has their own opinions, but here's the thing that I think is the even bigger aspect of all of this. I don't know how much the average fan realizes how regimented a football player's week is. Monday we have this, we have, training and film. Tuesday we have this, that we're off. Wednesday we have strengthening and we have this. Thursday we do that. I mean, it's like their lives are so ridiculously structured during the season for obvious reasons why they have to get their conditioning in, but they also have to get their recovery time in. They have to get, all of this other stuff in. They have to get game planning in, meetings, all that stuff. When you change the schedule on them, it throws all of that into chaos. Everything has to be switched, and sometimes midweek. Now, they're professionals, and people will say, they get paid millions of dollars, Dayna, they can handle it. You're right, they can. But it's just harder and makes life so much more difficult. And I think it would have been better to give every team 2 byes. I think that would have been logical. Spread them out as much as you possibly can, and then still have an extra week at the end of the season, a week 18, or week 19 even, to have those makeup games so that, we're not throwing in a Tuesday game and trying to make them play again on Sunday. I just don't think that that's fair. So I think I guess they got to play Monday, but still it was just different. So I think it could have been done much better, and hopefully they're learning lessons, that they can carry over if they need to.
So basically, you and I should just run the NFL. I think that's the moral of
I don't see why that's so hard. I think that if we just run it, then everything will be fine.
Yeah, we would totally have it down. We would know exactly what to do. There would be no Ryan Fitzpatrick being benched. There would be...
We're way smarter than everybody else now.
Yeah, we totally know what we're doing. Yeah.
So true.
So now it's time to talk about the Ravens, because I feel like they are going crazy with with the fact that they are potentially taking in Dez Bryant to the practice squad. Dez obviously hasn't played since he got that really unfortunate injury.
What year was that even? I can't. It was even not like 4 years.
I feel like it was. It was a long time.
I'm gonna Google it right quick. Yeah, because
oh my god, 2017.
So 4 years, 4 seasons.
That's mental. So he hasn't actually played since 2017.
That's great. Okay, so here's the deal. The Ravens, when we found out today that the Ravens had traded for Yannick, we knew that they had had an interest in him in a long time. And I think that has a lot to do with Calais Campbell being in Baltimore now, and how he, what they were back together. I just feel that there was a push there to get them back together. And so it seems like maybe, I don't know if the Vikings are just like, you know what, this year sucks for us. Let's move on. You know what I mean? They're like, let's start gearing up for next year. If they've thrown in the towel already, I don't know that. But, and so the Ravens had been going after him for a while. So that wasn't a surprise. But Ian Rappaport's next tweet of that they were going to bring Dez Bryant in and put him on a practice squad, I was laughing hysterically. I'm not going to lie. I was laughing hysterically. And it's no disrespect to Dez. I promise you Dez Bryant is still in shape. I just don't know that he still has what they need or they want from him. But at the same time, why the hell not? I mean, the rules this year are so wacky, the practice squad rules. I mean, to think that you could put Dez Bryant on a practice squad is just crazy. But, he's been in the league for how long? But he has always wanted to come back, and he's never been quiet about that. And the Ravens did bring him in for a workout early in the season. So maybe there's still something left in that tank. Maybe he'll be, a specialist for them. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't make it off the practice squad and he's just insurance. I don't know. But I'm not going to lie, I did laugh out loud at that one.
I think he's going to have to really prove himself, though, because, they have Hollywood Brown. Like, he is amazing at wide receiver.
And isn't that his cousin? No.
That's A.J. Brown's cousin.
A.J. Brown's cousin. Okay, yeah.
Antonio Brown. Not A.J. Brown. Antonio Brown. Sorry. From the Steelers.
Oh, so the conversation yesterday with Antonio, that's interesting because Antonio Brown, the Seahawks are still interested in Antonio Brown, which I think we're going to talk about in a minute. But it was like everyone kept saying, oh, maybe he'll end up in the Ravens. Maybe he'll end up with the Ravens. You're absolutely right because his cousin is there. Well, I think that's done. They're not going to take both Antonio Brown and Dez Bryant. So.
Oh, I think that would be too much ego in one practice squad for my liking. It'd be like, okay, everyone else is in the practice squad. You need to go because we need room for their egos. Like,
that might be real interesting to watch. Who knows? And Dez Bryant might be a different guy now because he's had to sit for a few years. So maybe some of that has been put in check. But I just remember him being, getting those thrown up the X. That's Dez Bryant. That's who he is. So it'll be interesting to see him back in the league if he makes it back into the league. But it'll be interesting.
It will be really interesting to see how that all plays out. So talking of Antonio Brown.
Oh, God.
There are rumors that he is on his way to Seattle. What is your thoughts on that?
Oh, good Lord. Okay, so let me tell you, I made my thoughts very loud and clear on Twitter last night. I'll do it again today. Hell no. Hell no. No one needs Antonio Brown in Seattle. Here's the thing. It's not just Seattle. Apparently, there's multiple teams interested. So I want to make that clear, first of all. But here's the thing. He hasn't been reinstated yet. He still has the possibility of being on the commissioner's exempt list because he still has charges against him pending. I believe rape charges pending against him at this point, which I remember. Plus, he has the whole endangering the life of a 2-year-old. I mean, Antonio Brown is a mess, people. And so the fact that we're even talking about him coming back to the NFL, period, is baffling to me. and why Seattle specifically. There's other teams who could, I understand they're desperate. I get that. Okay. Seattle offensively is not desperate. Seattle's the number one offense in the league right now. There's no need for him. And I know here, I have to bite my tongue. I have to be a little careful because I get really worked up because I don't understand Russell Wilson's push for him. I don't understand if Russell thinks he's going to save him. I don't understand why he keeps pushing for him. He's like, you can get an elite talent like that. You get it. Do you? Or do you want a guy who quits at halftime and walks out or gets mad over a helmet and refuses to play? I don't think anyone wants that. And you can't tell me that aspect of Antonio Brown is gone. I would not buy it at all. So, no, I don't think he's needed in Seattle. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, David Moore, they've looked fantastic, and they just need to leave that offense be.
We also, Josh Gordon's still very vocal about the fact that if he gets reinstated, he'd love to come back to Seattle. So
Seattle signed him. I mean, if he gets reinstated, he is a Seattle Seahawks player.
I just don't really understand why we would try and go for Brown. I don't think that when he went to the Raiders and had all that drama, I kind of found it funny because, I'm not just saying this because I'm a Seahawks fan. I just don't think if I wasn't a Seahawks fan, I wouldn't go Brown, and his attitude is what Seattle need. They have a very strict, there's no really big egos in that team at all. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Seahawks fan. There just really isn't. They're all quite grounded people. I feel like. Well, Sherman maybe not, but that's a few years ago. But
they've learned that lesson. No, I think you're absolutely right there. I'm a huge Richard Sherman fan. I will be for the rest of my life and will defend him to the end of the earth. But when you had Sherman, you had Earl Thomas, you had Michael Bennett, they realized that those big egos can fill up a room and that their talent does sometimes outweigh that. But with the baggage Brown brings, I just don't see that. And you brought up a great point about Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is already a Seattle Seahawk. The minute the NFL decides to reinstate him, which I think will be week 8, but that's a whole thing. But I think that then there's absolutely no need for Antonio Brown. And Josh Gordon already knows the system. He's already played. They know what he can do. I think it's a smokescreen for some reason, and I just don't buy it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes. So basically, we're Team Gordon.
Right. All about Flash. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. All about Flash.
I've always liked Flash. I've never really liked. I don't know what Antonio Brown calls himself. Does he call himself a superhero? I don't think he does. No.
Nutty.
Booming. That's about it. Okay, so now on to listeners' questions. The first one is there any stat more telling about how the game has changed than Joe Flacco being sandwiched between Unitas and Montana for career yardage?
No, I think that's a fantastic question, and I think that it's absolutely correct. The interesting thing about the game of football, as we know, I get really upset when people try and compare current quarterbacks, current teams to teams back in the 70s, because the game is not the same. It is not the same game due to the athletes, due to the rules, due to so many other things. And so when we talk about the golden age of football, you literally have to split it because it's just so different. So yes, I agree that when you do complete stats, so Johnny Unitas, he played in the 60s, for God's sake, he's clear back there. And then, you have Joe Montana, who was the king of the 80s and the 90s, to now Joe Flacco. What it says is two things. It shows how the game has evolved, and it shows how long and somewhat successful Joe Flacco has been as a quarterback. So I think he deserves some credit. I'm not saying that he's trash and doesn't belong on the list at all, because we have to remember those Ravens years. He's been to the Super Bowl. He was very good for that team. But I do think that it does prove that we've gotten away from the run game. The defensive side of the game is completely different, and these athletes are so much faster, so much cleaner, so much in tune with the game and their bodies and all of that. They've become machines. And so I think that definitely proves how much the game has changed and evolved. But I don't want it to be a slight on Joe Flacco. Is he elite? No. Remember that conversation went on for years. Is Joe Flacco an elite quarterback? He's not. But he's solid and he's consistent and he's had a nice long career in the NFL. And so I think that does deserve some recognition.
And the final question is, what is your advice for fans seeking to elevate their football IQ? Does it all analysis basically boil down to understanding the stats? So for me, I'm not really a stats person. Like I find it interesting when I find out how many yards defenses let up or how many yards a running backs run, or say a really like long throw from a quarterback for a touchdown. That sort of things excite me. But when it comes like down to like boiling it to yards per carry and all this sort of stuff, I kind of get bogged down by it all. I'm very much an emotional sort of like football viewer. So it's like you said earlier, Dayna, it's like the eye test. It's what I like to see on the field, how the team performs together on offense and defense, and just how it all jams together, from the coaching staff to plays you hear and things that are exciting, like, you know, in the Super Bowl we had the Philly special, like stuff like that. I think those are more interesting to me than really sitting there and looking at all the stats that's worked out from a game. But I feel like other people love stats, you know, so it just depends, I feel, what type of football fan you are and how you interpret the game your own way to fully understand it and enjoy it and to elevate your IQ.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. So I've had my eye opened this season. I was invited at the beginning of the season to join a very popular Seahawks podcast called Real Hawk Talk. It's run by Hawk Blogger, and it has Evan Hill, who everyone loves or hates. There's no two ways on Evan Hill. But and so they invited me to come on. And so I've joined this group and I really enjoy it. But this group is split down the middle, and it's perfect explanation of this question. There are the guys who live and die by the stats, and then there's the guys who go more by gut feeling and what they're seeing. And then there's kind of a nice blend of the two. So they argue all the time, and they call each other the nerds. It's like the nerds won because the DVOA was this, and they're ranked second in, you know, what is it? Oh, something sacks, rush, but you have to take out the quarterback runs, and you have to, they lose me on a regular basis. They get so in depth. It's like, how long is the guy's shoelaces, and were they tied properly? That's now a stat, you know? So I think that it's hard as a fan if you aren't really into the analytical side of the game. And that's what I call that, the overly analytical side of the game. It's hard to like jump into that pool because it just is. And then there are the more, I would say, majority of fans who are like you. They're more emotional. It's the eye test. It's what they see. Is the team gelling? Are we getting some nice, you know, explosive plays, things like that? And so there is football that can be like a symphony play that you're watching, how everything's moving together, or it can literally be we're counting steps. I think to really understand the game of football, you have to do a little bit of both. There were people who say, you know, Russell Wilson wasn't that great of a quarterback because he had a really good defense. Obviously, for years. Obviously, that's not the case. But unless you understand how those two different entities are graded separately, you don't really understand why Russell Wilson was still great, even though they had a great defense. So I think if it were up to me, because I love this question, because I think most fans have this question. The things you want to look at, you want to understand are quarterback rating. You want to look at completion rating. That's how you know whether or not a quarterback is doing well. Is how often does he complete those passes? Those are a couple of good ones. Explosive play. So those are those beautiful long throws that Russell Wilson does to DK Metcalf into the end zone, or that you see Aaron Rodgers throwing those Hail Marys down into, and they manage to catch them. Those explosive plays are fantastic. In your secondary, you want to know, how does your defense do against those type of plays? On defense, you really just want to know their ranking. How well are they stopping the run? How well are they stopping, you know, explosive plays? And I think if you know just a couple of those stats and why, you know, pass rush is important, not just sacks, but quarterback hits are important. Simple things like that. Now, if you get down into DVOA and all of those super deep statistics, I don't think you need to know that unless you're truly analyzing film. But just kind of some of the basic ones are interesting. And you can say, yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick plays for the Dolphins, and the Dolphins aren't supposedly very good, but he was the 7th ranked quarterback in quarterback rating. And so he was doing well, sort of a thing. I think that those few things are important.
Yeah.
Sorry, was that too much?
No, it's great. It's a great answer. I'm more like mine's so like how my feelings are up or down. Like I remember the Vikings game. Like I took off my Seahawks jumper, started putting on a purple jumper to like get those superstitions. I'm one of those fans. So
I love those fans make up 90% of fan bases, and that's why you see people who I can't. Okay, so I'm just going to admit this to you. I can't watch field goals. I have to turn around. I can't watch the TV when they kick a field goal. And I've discovered myself doing it even on teams that I'm not necessarily a fan of. I'm like, oh, he's going to kick a field goal. And it's instantly I spin around. If there's like at the end, I admit this to everybody, but when the Seattle Seahawks were playing the 49ers to go to that Super Bowl and the Seattle beat the 49ers because of Richard Sherman had tipped the ball. So the tip, I did not see that live because I was pacing up and down this back hall behind me. And I was up and down because I get superstitious. If I'm watching it, then then something bad's going to happen. So I get that emotional side of it. And I think everyone has emotional responses to the game. That's what makes football fun. You have to have that. And if you're having fun or if you're stressed out or if you're rooting and cheering and hollering, that's being a fan too.
It must just be the Vikings for me because even when I watched the game live like last year, Kirk Cousins was on a last minute run and it was like the end of the game and it was like the 2-minute warning and I was like, okay, I have to not look. The guy next to me was like, you've flown like how many miles to see Seattle at CenturyLink and you're not watching the last 2 minutes? I was like, nope.
No, I totally understand. I'm a huge soccer fan. I love soccer. I will not watch penalty kicks. I get it.
Don't either.
Up and out. I'm at the stadium. I won't watch them.
I've never seen my team win a penalty kick, so I deliberately don't watch because I'm like, I'm a jinx.
So funny. So isn't that fun? Isn't that the way that you're supposed to enjoy sports and you're supposed to have those emotional responses? So if you're watching a game, clicking off statistics, that's not fun. This is the fun part of football. And I think that however you decide to like football or learn about football or watch football, that's okay because it's your fandom.
Well, that's all for this week's episode of the End Zone Scoop. Thanks for tuning in, and if you haven't already, please rate, review, subscribe, and hey, tell a friend about us too. Until next time, thanks for listening.